Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
This is Jack Berry with the Michigan Golfer on television, and today we're at the Country Club of Jackson with Jackson's #1 golfer of all time, Dave Hill. Dave, it's good to see you again, and glad that you're still playing so well. Had a little 68, just about matched your age a few days ago.
Well,
and he's
almost
67. He's not 69 now. We'll get that right.
But it's a pleasure to be here, Jack. Thank you.
We're going to talk about Ryder Cup today. Dave is unbeaten in singles. He played in 3 Ryder Cups, all of them overseas, where it's a little bit tougher to win for the Americans. He played 1969 at Royal Birkdale, and 73 at the Muirfield, 77 at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's. Had a 6-3 overall record. He won 13 times on the PGA Tour, including the Buick Open back in 1969. Top 60 money winners for 17 straight years on the tour. Won 6 times on the PGA Senior Tour. And he's went into the Michigan Golf Hall of Fame in 1993. So it's a fabulous record, and this guy was one of the most fun guys to watch in the time that I covered golf at the Free Press and the News, was watching Dave Hill, and nobody worked harder at it. Vijay Singh was an acolyte compared to David on the practice tee. So we want to talk a little bit about Ryder Cup. Let's go back to your first time back in 1969 at Birkdale.
Well, Jack, I'll tell you one thing. Just being a member of the team, to me, was the best honor I ever had. And you talked about getting goosebumps, and I got them anytime I played in a match or even went there.
Now, what was it nowadays? It seems like most of the European team lives in Florida half of the year.
Well, they play over here all the year.
They're on the PGA Tour.
Right.
It was different then, wasn't it?
Well, yes, because we didn't have a lot of the foreign players. They might come over for the majors, and that was it. Now they're all playing over here because the money is so much bigger than what it is in their country, and everybody basically swings the club almost alike. There's very few changes in the golf swing. When you see the real good players today, they all look like they come right out of the same mold.
So what was it like then playing? It was a little bit more of us against them?
Well, that's right. It was sort of a rivalry, like a high school basketball team playing across town rivalry. You were there to win. And friendships, you didn't have many, or I didn't anyway, because I was, you're there to win. You're on a team, and you're going to try to beat them.
And you were always a scrappy player anyway.
Well, I always played to win, and playing that format, the toughest part of the format for me was the alternate shots. That was the toughest part.
Why was that?
Well, because, say you get to tee off on the first hole, and your partner goes off the second hole. Well, you don't want to let him down. And it's for damn sure he don't want to let you down. And so while you're waiting for him to play his shot, thinking about what I'd be doing, and I'm not telling him what he should be doing, and you sit there and wait, and so he might hit a miscue, like I did with Arnold Palmer at the 18th hole in 1977. I've got a 2-iron in my hand, and we're all even. And I pulled a 2-iron into the left-hand bunker. Well, Arnold, playing with Arnold, you didn't have to worry about where his tee ball was going. It was going down the middle. And, so you blame yourself for losing that match. Because it wasn't Arnold that hit that 2-iron, I hit it.
But don't they always say it's the team, the team, the team?
Well, I never took it that way, because if I made the mistake, that was my fault. My partner didn't make it. And yet you'll have a partner that would make a mistake, and he's not trying to make that mistake.
Talk a little bit about the back in '69, your match with Brian, with Huggett and Bernard Gallagher. That was one of the tough ones. You and Ken Still played that.
Right, that was an afternoon match, and I think Dale Douglas and I had been beaten in a best ball in the morning, 1 up on 18, and then we got paired with Brian Huggett and Bernard Gallagher. Kenny Still and I did. And we were like 2 up going to the 7th hole, which is a little par 3 down the hill. And Kenny put it off the left edge of the green, and I put it about 15, 20 foot behind the hole, a little bit left. And the wind was blowing hard right to left, and they put it off the green left. And they pitched up and left themselves somewhere between 12 and 8 footers. And we're playing a best ball. And Kenny pitched it about 3 foot by the hole. I putted mine up about 4 to 6 inches from the cup. And I walked up and tapped it in the hole, which was wrong for openers, but no penalty. And then I reached down and grabbed Kenny's coin and flipped it to him. And immediately, which he had the right to do, Gallagher says, "You can't do that." And I said, "Can't do what?" And all he said is, "You can't do that." So you call the referee, you got an American observer, a British observer, and an official. And the official was from Spain. And so the official come over, and I said, and Kenny and I were talking about, what did we do wrong? He said, "You putted out of turn." I said, "Can we put the ball back?" And every time we said that, now they must have said this 10, 15 times, Gallagher, before the man could answer, would say, "You wouldn't put it back in the right place." And I'm not even upset yet. And so after this goes back and forth, and every time we ask him, "Can we put the ball back?" Gallagher jump in there. So I said, "Let's go." So we're only one up now, going to number 8. And so they tee off, Kenny hits it, and I hit a 1-iron down the middle, and I went over the back of the tee to go to the bathroom. And they got little narrow paths going from the tee down to the fairway. And Kenny's standing there talking to the official, and Gallagher's standing there. And so I went by, and I hit Kenny on the back and said, "Come on, Kenny, let's play." And I heard the official say, "Yes, you could have." And I turned around and I said, "Yes, we could have what?" And he said, quote, "You, sir, could have put your ball back, sir, but you didn't ask." Well, I went total ballistic. And Gallagher jumped in there, and I just said, "You say one more word, boy, and I'm putting this 1-iron right upside your head." Well, from then on in, it wasn't pretty, let's put it that way.
Well, wasn't there a little friction even before, earlier in the round? Were they complaining about you at all, walking around or anything like that?
No, I mean, we didn't get any of that. That was when it happened right then. Yeah. And if Mr. Gallagher had let the official go through his routine, there wouldn't have been a problem. I would have got to replace my ball, they would have got to putt, and I would have got to putt it in.
Yeah.
More than likely, they would have given me the putt.
Yeah. There wasn't any gimmies then.
No, but you know, when he said you can't do that, and it didn't dawn on me or Kenny until we called the official over, and then we asked, can't we put the ball back?
Yeah.
And every time we said it, Gallagher would say, "That won't be good enough. You wouldn't put it back in the same place."
Well, he was a bulldog. I think it was 4 bulldogs playing that match.
There were 3 bulldogs for sure, but Brian Huggett has always been a wonderful person, and I always liked Brian Huggett. I never could stand Gallagher from the get-go.
So there's no love lost.
There was never any love lost there.
Well, you won that match. What was it?
We beat him 2-up on the 8. I made an eagle at the 17th hole to beat him.
Okay. That had to be very.
It was very exciting. But the best was the next 2 days.
Okay.
And then the singles matches.
Well, you went in those days. You played singles twice.
Yes.
And
36 holes on the last day.
The Ryder Cup has changed a lot over the years of the different formats. But in those days, it was a lot more difficult. You're playing two singles matches on Sunday. And you won both of them.
Right. I had Peter Townsend in the morning, but I didn't sleep all night. I was so mad. And
what were the papers saying then?
I had no clue, because I know one thing. See, my ancestors are from England.
Yeah.
And I told them, I made a statement when I left, I know why my ancestors left here.
That made you real popular.
Right. But, no, I had Brian Townsend was his name, nice
Peter
boy.
Townsend.
Peter Townsend was
Yeah.
a nice boy. He played over here a little bit.
Right.
And I had him first thing in the morning, and I whacked him out 8-7. And Brian Barnes, who nobody could beat for the week.
It's a big
In
guy.
fact, I could tell you a story about what Lee Trevino said, but it wouldn't go well on TV. Because
well, Barnes beat Nicholas a couple
well,
times.
Barnes
in
beat
singles,
Nicholas.
later
Barnes
on.
beat Nicholas. Well, Barnes won, I think, almost every match until that day, and I beat him 5-3.
Yeah.
But I could tell you about what Trevino said, and you'd understand. That was a fun.
Wasn't he a big guy? He always had a pipe in his
Yeah,
mouth,
he was a pipe
something?
smoker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Big man.
Yeah. So that was a tough match all the way around. 16-16.
Well, I was-
draw for the
Right.
team result.
Well, that, you know, there was a little discussion there too. I mean, a little hard feelings there. Why it come down to that? But that was Jack's.
That was Nicholas.
That was his conceding that putt,
Yeah.
and for the whole deal.
Yeah.
And whether Jack was playing,
Well, Sam,
being a diplomat,
wasn't,
and
Sam Snead the captain. That
Sam
year?
was the captain.
Was
and-
Sam a little upset
Yes,
about that?
well, Sam was upset, and I think there was a little thing there between Sam and Jack, because Sam didn't play Jack the first day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I know Jack didn't play in the afternoon match on the first day. That's when Kenny, or the second day, that's when Kenny and I got into it with them, because he and Dan Sykes come out to the 10th tee to find out what was going on, and all I said was they cheated us out of a hole, number 7. And Jack says, "What do you think's going to happen?" And I said, "Well, we may not win the match, but it's for damn sure we're going to win the fight."
Now the Ryder Cup has changed a little bit.
Yes. Well, see,
since,
now
hasn't it?
they play together all the time, so they know one another.
Well, the second time that you played was 4 years later over there at Muirfield, and you only got to play one time. What was? You
Well,
said
I just
something
come
about
out
you'd been
of,
in Japan.
I finished second in Japan, and I could have won the tournament by using the rule book, but I refused to do it. And then I flew 36 straight hours to get there, and I had horrendous pains right under my diaphragm, and I didn't know what was wrong. And the doctor said I had jet lag. Well, it was real hard to breathe. I couldn't swing golf club for sure, so they would put me on Librium. So I become basically a co-captain with Jackie Burke, which, was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Who did you almost lose to, or you did lose to in Japan? What was that?
Well, I can't even think of the Japanese names go by me, but I was playing with 2 little Japanese fellas, and we're in the last group, and I was like 2 shots behind teeing off, and I had an interpreter with me, and we get around there, and I get to where I'm like 1 shot, but in the meantime, one of the little guys, he's dropped out of contention. But all the way around the golf course, they're clubbing one another.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it got to the point to where the one that was out would walk over and step behind the ball of the other fella, and they had him on camera. And my interpreter's saying, "They can't do that." I said, "I know they can't do that." And so when we get in the clubhouse, my interpreter went to the head of their golf association, who was a very nice elderly gentleman, and he called them 2 fellas into the room with the interpreter, and then they replayed the 16th, 17th, and 18th holes back on TV and showed them. And then they come to me and asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, if I can't beat a person with my golf clubs, I'm not going to beat them with the rule book. I'll take right where I'm at second.
Yeah. Well, good.
I said, just tell them if they come to America, they won't last a week.
Did
But-
they ever come over?
One of them did. He played pretty good in the Masters about 4 years later.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, they had to go through a learning process.
Sure. Yeah.
That the rule book does count.
So then your third time in the Ryder Cup was at Royal Lytham.
Right, and I was not playing well then.
What you mean going into the?
Right, I was not swinging the golf club very well.
But you didn't. You played pretty good there.
Well, I played with Dave Stockton one day, and we get beat. I don't know. We probably got beat 2-up, and it was strictly because I was of no help.
Yeah. But I thought that you played with Stockton and you won a match. You beat Jacqueline and Amy Darcy, 5-3.
How many matches did I play?
Well, you played. Then you won singles 5-4 over.
Right,
Horton.
over Horton.
Yeah.
Did Stockton and I win? I thought Stockton and I got drilled.
No.
Stealing our table. I'm sneaking it this way. He's sneaking it that way.
What happened? It went from no edge all of a sudden I go white, and now I'm seeing a big.
Right. And no, I played. That was at really the start of when I started to play poorly, and I quit right after that.
Fitzgerald was captain.
Captain.
And
Wonderful captain.
U.S. won 12.5 to 7.5.
Right.
And as I said,
Well, it was over
you
before.
won your the two matches you were involved in.
Geez, I thought we lost. I thought Dave Stockton and I lost because I know I drove it pathetic.
No, the book says that you won 5-3.
Well, that's a surprise. I was trying to think the other night. I think I won 4 singles, didn't I?
You won all of your singles matches.
Which
you
of
won
4 of them?
3 of them because you won
3.
2 the
That's
first
right.
time.
Right.
Second time when you weren't feeling well. You
Right.
didn't. You
That's
didn't
right. I
play
didn't.
Singles.
That's right.
And then the third time you won your singles match.
Right.
But you delighted playing singles in that. Didn't
Well,
you?
it was sort of takes you back to when we were kids around here
Yeah.
playing in all our tournaments that Jackson had, with all match play. And then later on there was some medal tournaments when you got better.
Yeah.
When you got to where you were about a 1 handicap or better. Then they played. But you always had a lot of match play, and there's a big difference between match play and medal play.
What do you think of the way the Ryder Cup has grown from the 3 that you played in all overseas to what it is now at Oakland Hills? It's become. I mean, it seems like it's bigger than the Super Bowl and the Ryder or the Masters and everything else you can think
Well,
of.
Jack, over there it was always a big deal. Over here it wasn't. I mean, over there they'd have, I don't know. I mean, it was wall-to-wall people.
Yeah.
And they're cheering for their people.
Right.
They weren't rude,
Right.
but if you missed a 3-foot putt, they clapped.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, that's like at a football game, It didn't bother you.
Yeah.
But the way some of our people have acted over here the last couple of years, it's sort of out of the unacceptable.
Yeah.
You're there to watch golf.
Right.
If the guy misses a 3-4 foot putt and you clap, that's fine because that's what they do to you over there. But you don't harass the player before he
Right.
gets his chance to
You
swing
don't
the
get
golf
on,
club.
Colin Montgomery.
Right. No.
Right.
No, you just let the men play.
Yeah. What do you think of the size of it now? How much it's?
Well, I'm glad Americans finally got to thinking it was a great deal like the British did.
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about it is letting the captain pick 2 players. I think that adds politics to it.
You think it should be the top 12?
I think it should be because those kids work hard to be on that Ryder Cup. And for you to be the 11th man and maybe by a point you weren't 10th.
Yeah.
It's like what happened to me. I think it was when Lou Graham beat John Mahaffey.
Right.
I was the 12th player. And the only way I could be booted was for Lou Graham to win the U.S. Open.
Which
And
he
when
did.
John Mahaffey 3-putted to let him in,
Yeah.
I could have killed the little guy. I mean, that was really disappointing for me
Yeah.
because I was delighted just to be a member of the team.
Yeah. He won the playoff over at Medina, wasn't it? And Lou Graham
Yes.
wore his same little light blue shirt every day. His lucky blue shirt.
And Lou had it in that left rough at 18 and made 4.
And you'll never forgive him for
That's
it.
right. No, that was probably that was a big letdown for me that year.
What do you see this year for the Ryder Cup for the U.S. against all of Europe?
Well, I'll promise you, it's going to be a good one because everybody's so evenly matched. I don't know who the captain picked to be the 11th and 12th player.
That won't happen yet.
But I just sort of wish they'd take the best 12 and leave politics or friendships out of it.
What do you think of playing at Oakland Hills?
Well, they're going to have some fun there. I never could play Oakland Hills.
Why is that?
I couldn't putt those greens.
Okay.
It's sort of like me going to Oakmont.
Yeah.
It was an automatic 4 to 7 3-putts a day.
Yeah. What about, is it a good match play course?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Because of the greens.
Because of the greens. And, well, the other thing, too, is match play is where if your opponent goes off first and makes, you got an option. Medal play, you just play.
Right.
But in match play, if he puts it in a bunker, like what happened, why we lost one match in '69, Tommy Aaron and I lost the match, because I drove it in a left-hand fairway bunker, and they drove it right in the same left-hand bunker, so we're still dead even. Yeah. It's par 5. But we got to play first out of the bunker, and I said to Tommy, I said, just take your sand wedge and explode it out of there. I can put it on the green with a 4-iron. He reaches for his 9-iron. Well, when he reached for the 9-iron, I reached for my sand wedge because I knew I was going to be playing that same shot. And so we ended up getting beat 1-up. But we'd made a couple mistakes, and we didn't take advantage of a couple of their mistakes. No. But there's a big difference between playing against 144 players than playing against 1 or 2, because you can use a little gamesmanship in match play, which you would never use in tournament play.
Give us a few examples.
Well, you can move, you can say something. You know, yeah. you can draw a picture they might not like. Like,
say, man, that's a tough shot.
No, you say something like, well, man, I put it in that left-hand bunker yesterday. I'm sure glad I didn't today. And now, automatically, you've planted a negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of little moves you can make in match play you don't ever even think about doing.
Do you see much of that nowadays?
I don't think so. I just think the guys just play. Well, Sunday, somebody said something to Mickelson that he'd almost hit it out of bounds on the
5th hole. It hit
not the 5th hole. It was
hit somebody's ankle and stayed in.
Well, before he fired on Sunday, the kid said something to him about it. Yeah. Well, you know, that's to me trying to make but you're planting a seed.
Yeah. This is a spectator that said it, right?
Yeah, you're drawing the man a picture that he don't want to see.
Right. So did you always have clear thoughts when you were playing?
No, I defied the negatives. I had a lot of negative thoughts, but I defy them. I think, don't hit it left. Well, aim it left and take it away from left.
What was over the years, some of your favorite courses and favorite tournaments?
Well, I'll promise you, Memphis had to be my favorite town. But my favorite golf course, and I think one of the best golf courses that I ever played, because I used every golf club in my bag for 6 straight days, was the National Cash Register in Dayton, Ohio. When I finished, I don't know, 3rd, 4th. It was a PGA. Ray Floyd won it.
Right. And
I used every golf club in my bag every day. And I've never played a golf course before or since that I had to do that.
Well, now you ought to get your game going again, because they're going to play the senior Open there.
Sure.
No.
I gave it up 10 years ago, and I'm not going back. I didn't leave anything out there I want to go find.
Yeah, it's been a while. In NCR, I understand they've taken down a lot of the trees. And
well, I promise you, it's a wonderful golf course. Yeah. You know, if I was playing as good as my brother Mike, I would might consider it.
Yeah. Why do you think you aren't playing that well anymore?
Because I lost my desire back in '77, and he had a lot of desire when he turned 50, and he's in good health, and he's strong, and he's got that desire to beat somebody.
Now, you don't play too much anymore, is that right?
I play, like this year, I've played 18 holes of golf since last September.
You play like customer golf?
Customer golf, work for Alro Steel, and I just play when I have to and hit a few balls and go out and have a good time.
You know, we were talking
Entertain.
Earlier about you had a 68 last week, and how many, you hit what, 14 greens?
Well, I hit all 16 greens,
All
but
16.
I hit 16 greens out of 18, and I was just off the edge on 2 of them. But I had it 14 times, 3 foot, 10 foot, and I made 6 birdies and 2 bogeys.
Wow. It's the great ones do
But
not lose it.
But I'm playing from the white tees, too.
Well, so what?
I was going to put a skirt on and go to the Reds.
Do you enjoy it, or do you get more fun fishing, or what?
Well, I enjoy playing with the people I play
Yeah.
with. You know, it's meeting the people. As far as golf, no, I don't enjoy it that much because I won't go out and practice like I should. And as long as I can shoot somewhere around par, I'm happy. But I don't want to go punish myself anymore out there.
Tell us a little bit about growing up around here and caddying at Country Club and playing golf.
Well, we grew up right over here behind the 6th green here. We had a farm, 66-acre farm, and we would cut through the woods, through the field, crawl over the fence, and come over here and caddy. I started. I couldn't carry a bag. I was too small, but I shagged and started in '47. And my brother Mike come in '48. My brother George had already been caddying over here for 3 or 4 years, and it was real handy. We got to play here on Mondays. But growing up around here, we had so many golf tournaments during the summer, like 4 or 5, that anybody could play in. You pay your $1.50, and if you shot 100, you might be in 4th or 5th flight. And in like the first match I ever played, it was in 47, 48. I shot 101 at the Cascades, qualified. And I'm 4'4". And I played a man, it was 6'4". And I shot 101 again and got beat on the 20th hole.
Wow.
And it was on a hole, today it's a 6-iron shot.
Yeah.
Back then I had to take my driver and carve it around the water because I couldn't carry it 160 yards. But that's what we had around here. That's what I think we had so many good golfers in the Jackson area.
What did you make as a caddy in those days?
Well, we got a $1. When I first started, you got $1 for 9 holes, $1.50 for 18 holes. And then if you become a captain caddy, when I quit, when we were doing the golf course too, my brother Mike and I'd water the fairways and greens when we got to be 17, 18, 19 years old. But when I quit, a captain caddy got $4, double, for 18 holes.
Did most players take a caddy in those days?
The Jackson Country Club has always had a great caddy program. I mean, they push it hard.
Yeah.
And Arbor Hills, the same way, had a good caddy program.
Now we're talking. You grew up on a farm, 66-acre farm. We're talking about corn, and one of your more famous famous quotes was up at Hazeltine when you said.
That's right. Open.
You said
Hip
what?
palm his mouth. I just said they ruined a good cow pasture. That's all. A good corn. I said they ruined a good farm. That's what I said. They ruined a good farm.
And a few years later, didn't Trent Jones ask you back up there?
Well, they made. Yeah, I went back up there. They made 32 changes in an 18-hole golf course. So I had to be right.
Yeah.
And they turned it into a wonderful golf course because I was up there when I think
When they had the Open, when Payne
Payne Stewart won it.
Right.
And I'd played it the year before when the U.S. Open, the senior U.S. Open was in Chicago at Medina. And then the next year, the regular tournament was at the seniors U.S. the regular U.S. Open was at Medina.
Right.
Then they went from there up to Hazeltine, and I went and played Hazeltine. And what a beautiful change they made, you know.
Well, it just shows you that they're not always right the first time, are they?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was, everybody agreed, you know. Like I tell everybody, I got all my lines from Arnold Palmer because I played with he and Ray Floyd the first 2 days.
And they weren't quoted.
No.
Or not as colorfully
No,
as
but-
you.
But I can tell you that the second day, first day was cold, windy, and I three-putted the last 3 holes to shoot 75, and then we had to tee off real early in the morning, and we get in, and I'm upstairs with my buddy. We're having lunch, and they kept coming and bugging me about going to the press, and I told them I didn't want to go to the press because, you know, they weren't going to like what I had to say. And so I finally go over there, and by that time I'd had 2 or 3 vodkas and 7-Ups, and I didn't really give a darn what I said because I knew I had to go practice. And so I walk in the locker room after the interview, and Arnold says, where have you been? And I said, well, Arnold, I've been over in the press stand telling them what a wonderful, fantastic, unbelievable golf course they had. He jumped right out of it. He was sitting with Bob Rosberg. And he jumped out of his chair and he said, you little SOB. He said, I thought if anybody would tell them what they had here, you would. I said, well, Arnold, you may have to apologize to me tomorrow morning. But I had a lot of fun with it.
Well, you were always the most quotable, most entertaining player around. You're the one guy who would speak his mind.
Well, if you ask me a question.
With good humor.
If you ask me a question, you got an answer.
Right.
I didn't beat around the bush.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't know how. I would never make a great politician because I can't flip-flop.
Yeah.
I take a stand and that's it.
Well, I
Right or wrong.
remember at the Buick Open one year when Joe Falls asked you, do you ever get the yips? Or something like that. Yeah, what?
He's
This was
playing-
like on Saturday night.
He's planting a negative.
Yeah. But you won.
Yeah. He was planting a negative. I mean, it's some of the dumbest questions that you'd get asked.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon you realize after a while, you know, there aren't any dumb questions. Because if they knew the answer, they wouldn't ask it.
Yeah.
But you get mad, you know, when you're hyper and you just come off a golf course and you've either had a great day or a poor day, and somebody makes a statement like that. Sometimes it's just like a hair trigger one.
that was funny.
And certain reporters you liked or you didn't like.
Yeah. But you got along well with Joe.
I got along well with almost all of them.
Yeah, right. Now, you got along with just about all sports writers, except one of the great ones that we had, unfortunately passed away. Jim Murray was the columnist for the Los Angeles Times.
Okay.
And he was funny.
He was. I want to promise you, I loved him.
Yeah.
But he wrote probably 3 or 4 articles cutting me up. And I'll tell you, he could cut you up, and you never knew you were cut. And I mean, if you read him, and I mean, it's amazing because he was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And then one time, I'm playing the Bob Hope. He followed me for 4 straight days. And I think Al has that article because we cut it out and they put it on and it was a wonderful article and funny.
Yeah.
You know, because he could put it to you.
Right.
But he had such a way of doing it. You know,
Yes.
he's the kind of guy that you couldn't get. Who would get mad at him because he uses words that I had to go to the dictionary to look up.
He had a magic touch.
He sure did. Very few writers could write like that.
Oh, no doubt about that. So what are some of the other experiences that you really enjoyed in your traveling days, other tournaments besides Memphis, other towns?
You know, you always look forward, I did anyway, to playing the Bing Crosby and the Bob Hope because Cypress Point was my favorite, real favorite golf course. That is just, I don't care if the weather's good or bad. That is a wonderful place to play, and along with Pebble Beach, except Pebble Beach was never in the condition that Cypress Point was.
Public golf course.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, I enjoyed going to the Bob Hope because even though it was a 5-day
Right.
format, because the golf courses, you played a different track every day until you got to play once the home track twice, and it just made you work hard. I mean, you had to think about what. Say you're going playing Indian Wells today, and you're going to Bermuda Dunes tomorrow, and Indian Wells was a golf course that was really tight, and you always felt like you should shoot 65, 66 at Indian Wells. And now you're going over to Bermuda Dunes, which is longer and a little higher where the wind can get a good shot at you. And so in your mind, when you were playing real good, you're saying, okay, man, if I can get around there and shoot 69 or 70, I'm doing good. And then you went to El Dorado, and that was like playing down a highway with a picket fence on both sides. If you could if you could make sure you could make a lot of birdies, but you could put a lot of balls out in somebody's yard. And so the 1-iron come into play a whole bunch over there. That was a golf course that I was negative from the first hole until I walked off. Just trying to keep it out of somebody's yard.
Now, playing like the Hope and the Crosby, you're playing with an amateur virtually every day.
Every day.
What was that like? I mean,
well,
you're an intense, focused player, but I've heard you were a terrific pro-am partner.
Right. Well, because I, for one, I think it's because I was a caddy.
Yeah.
You have to learn to associate with people, and when you're playing with an amateur that paid a bunch of money to be in this tournament, and it might be the highlight of his golfing career, you want to make his day. And I never did have, of course, I was lucky at the Crosby. I always got to play. I played with Phil Harris for years, and I played with Bob Goldwater, and I played with a couple other people, but I wasn't with them for 4 and 5 years. Then one year I took a friend out of Palm Springs up, which was probably the last year that I might have played up there. And that was sort of hilarious because we quit 4 times in the tournament and finally quit on Sunday because we had an airplane to make.
Well, playing with Phil Harris must have been
that was a riot.
A riot between
that was a
the
riot.
two of you.
And he would tell stories about me and, how he could embellish anything he said. He'd have you rolling on the floor. And he's making fun of me because of my temper and whatever out there.
Your temper? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I think it's inherited. English and German don't make a good mix. And a little bit Irish in there. Though I think it's something that the whole Hill family had.
Yeah. Now, did you have a few visits or conversations with the commissioner over the years?
I think I did. I had my share. Let's put it that way.
Did you contribute to some charity, or
I was probably right up there for a while.
Were you the leading contributor?
I was buying the pencils and the ink pens and the paper. There was a couple of guys got ahead of me though.
It was a struggle, though, I'll bet.
It was things that.
Joe Dye was commissioner
Joe
for a
Dye,
long time.
I always admired Joe Dye because he was a fair man.
Yeah.
And
what would he say?
Well, I was the kind of person, and if I messed up, I admit I messed up.
Yeah.
Don't give me no who shot John. Just tell me what it costs. and Joe would call me on the phone and say, "Well, Dave, you're going to have to go home for a week or two, and it's going to cost you $200. Fine, Joe, and we might go have coffee the next tournament we're in, and he'd stick up for you too. If you were right, you were right.
Well, that was good. He was a strong man.
Well, I'll tell you, it was like at the U.S. Open when I made them comments, and then when I finished the tournament, and I didn't want to go to the awards deal out there.
Right, you were runner-up.
Because I'd put up with them people for 2 days out there yelling at me and doing whatever, but I had that coming. And so B.J. Boatwright come down and told me the award ceremony was about to start, and I told him where to put the award ceremony. And so I'm sitting there having my drink, and here comes Joe. He sits down, We're sitting there talking a little bit, and I got my checkbook out, and I wrote out the check that he fined me. And I pushed it across the table, and he said, "I don't want it, Dave." I said, "Joe, you got to take it." He said, "Dave, I don't want it." I said, "Joe, you got to take it, because it was put in the paper how much you fined me. So here it is." And he turns to me, he says, "Dave, would you do me a favor?" And anytime anybody's ever said that to me in my whole life, and it comes from being raised with a good mother and father, I said, "Yeah, Joe, what do you need?" He said, "Would you go to the ceremonies?" I just cussed him and said, "Okay." Because I said I would. But Joe and I, like when Jackie Burke was captain of the 73
Right.
team, Joe Dye and I were up every morning at 4:30. We'd be out at the golf course, still dark, and I don't know what his job was, but we went out and checked all the pin placements, and I'd write down, pace off where the pins were, left, right, and I'd make little copies and give them to the players when they come out,
Right.
before they teed off. And then, but Joe and I had breakfast every day. I mean, he fined me up in New York one time, sitting at the breakfast table.
So you take the check and
Yeah, I never had a problem paying them.
yeah.
You know, we were taught, if you screw up,
You pay.
take the heat.
Yeah.
When you're right, you're right, and when you're wrong, you're wrong.
Let's talk a little bit about how the game has changed as far as equipment, balls and clubs, and
I'll tell you, the game has changed because these kids have got so much better, and I think it's through the different way they're taught than the way we were taught. See, nowadays, we were taught to play with our feet and our legs and our hands. Now they play with the big muscles. They play with their back. You watch these kids now; they just stand there, and the legs are the foundation. Very little movement on the backswing. You don't see the left foot coming way up in the air. You see the left foot sort of just tick a little inside. And then the right foot don't move until he's finished. And they just play with it. They coil up against the base. It's like the legs, the bottom part is the pin to the spring. And the sternum, the upper part of the body is the spring. And you coil around the base. And when you get it tight, and just watch them on the downward, forward motion. I mean, they may go back, and it might take them to count of 3 or 4 to get to the top, but it only takes them to count of 1 to get to the other end. That's how quick they're coming. And I think the biggest improvement in clubs has been, in balls basically, has helped the average player more than the real good player. Maybe the driver, more than anything, has helped the good player, because it's more even the irons are more forgiving, but they're so hard to work. You take cavity back clubs, they're hard to work. You know, you're trying to play a knockdown cut, and you got to keep it under 4 feet, and you're in your bag with before you could take any 3 or 4 clubs. I used to be able to take 3 or 4 clubs and play that shot. Now you really got to practice that.
But they don't play those shots anymore, do they?
Oh, yeah, they do. There's some kids out there where they got some great imagination. And that's what it takes to play a golf shot. You got to have an imagination, and you got to go out and play with it. In other words, go play a game with yourself out there in the woods.
Right.
And that's the only way you learn those shots, and learn the set of clubs you're playing with. See, now, in fact, I didn't think there was ever be a golf club that I could get up in the air real high, because I never did hit it real high, except for that one set I had that I wore out after 8 years. Ever since then, I've never had a set of clubs that I could get way up. Well, I got a set in the trunk. I got to change the shafts. But my brother Mike gave them to me, and he says, "I can't knock them down." And I'm thinking, with that little short swing of his, he can knock down anything. And so I tried them. I couldn't knock them down. I couldn't hold it down.
Okay, what clubs are these?
Those were those were Titleist,
Yeah.
and I don't know whether it because of the groove, And they're forged. They're not.
They're blades.
They're blades. They're not cavity backs.
Okay.
Now, Ping, when they first come out, that was a tough club I could never play with. I pulled them every time. That offset got me. But the ball goes further. The ball hangs longer. See, the ball hangs up there 6, 7 seconds, where it used to hang 4.5, 5 seconds.
Well, you got the high trajectory against the low trajectory.
And the metal driver, I think the metal woods have really helped the good player.
Yeah.
The irons, the cavity backs, and all that has helped the all-around player.
Yeah.
If you want to hit nothing but straight balls, you just get yourself a set of cavity backs with a shaft that suits you, and that's the key to a golf club, is the shaft.
Right.
If you like the looks of it, you need the shaft.
Yeah. Now, do you fool around much with clubs?
Not anymore.
No.
No. I forgot
Were you
this.
a tinkerer?
I always was. I changed my own shafts, I changed my own grips, and I balanced every club. And like I say, I had that one set of clubs forever until I wore them flat out. And they were the best set of clubs I ever. Those were Spaldings.
Spaldings.
And I'd paid a kid in Tucson, Arizona, $750 for them in 1967.
You paid for clubs?
I bought them from an assistant pro.
Wow. That's almost unheard of.
Well, I buy a lot of. I made a habit of trying to buy my clubs, even like when I turned 50, because I didn't want to feel obligated to have to play something that I didn't like.
That you weren't comfortable
that I found out I wasn't comfortable with. And after you use them, they don't want them back. And so I never sold a set of clubs in my life. I gave them to somebody.
What do you think of the broomstick putter and the belly putter?
Well, they could have put a stop to that years ago, but now that it's sort of like grandfathered in, I mean, it's helped. Look at the little German kid,
Langer. Yeah.
He was pathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great player.
Yeah, he is.
But
about 3
that,
times.
I mean, that really, he's had the yips probably 4 or 5 times in his life. And you got to give him credit, man. He's figured a way to cure him. I mean, to get over him. Even though I bet he's standing over every 4-footer to this day thinking, am I going to pull it or push it? But with holding on to that thing like this or sticking it in his stomach, now he's only got one hand to worry about yipping instead of 2. And that's what causes it. The left hand wants to go this way and the right hand wants to go that way, and now you got a disaster.
Now, did you ever have a case?
I've had a case, and I cured him by setting the putter behind the ball about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, or holding the putter off the ground like Nicklaus does.
Yeah.
And you're going to miss-hit a ton of them, but at least you're going to be able to pull the trigger. The worst thing that happened is what happened to Ben Hogan. He couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, right.
But Orville Moody was by far the worst putter I ever saw in my life. The absolute worst.
And then he got the big one.
And he got that big putter, and he became,
on the senior tour, holy mackerel, he cleaned up.
Orville Moody could play.
Yes.
But putt?
Yeah.
He made you want to go crawl in the car and never watch, because he could miss it. He could double hit it from 3 inches.
You probably don't watch that much golf now, but who do you like to watch? What games?
I want to promise you, I watch the majors, the last part of the majors, maybe on a Saturday and a Sunday, but what has fascinated me, and like just thinking about the players, I don't know many of them anymore because I just don't watch that much anymore, but out of all those players, everything looks identical. The setup, the wind-up, the slot at the top, the finish. There's 2 guys out there that don't quite do it the same as the other ones, and one of them's Furyk,
right?
And the other one is a little guy that finishes like he's way to the left. And a good player.
Well, he won the Open at
Yeah.
Corey Pavin.
Well, Corey Pavin, but there's another one. See, Corey Pavin's short.
Pavin comes around like that.
Yeah, but Corey Pavin didn't hit it very far.
Right.
This little guy can whop it. And he finishes like he's pulling one to the left field. It's called holding on and playing. He's strictly a right-sided player, which golf is right-sided, but you got to get the left side involved somewhere. But that's the only thing out there. The best swing out there for my book now is Ernie Els.
Right.
I mean, look at the pace he swings the golf club.
And they used to say that a tall man couldn't play well.
It doesn't look like he's going any faster
Yeah.
once he reaches the top of the swing and loads it to the finish.
Right.
And yet Tiger Woods takes that time getting back there, and when he fires from up there, it's like a tornado went through there.
Right. Yeah, he swings hard.
And I think that could be part of the problem. It's like David Duval. I really enjoyed his swing when he was playing well, and I actually think if I could talk to him, I might have something that might help him.
Yeah, it's amazing to go
Because
from
I went
where
through
he
that.
was.
I went through that for 7 years of hitting it like this.
Yeah.
And you take pictures of it, you couldn't see what the problem was. The practice tee was perfect. Go to the golf course, you might hit 5 of them things.
That must drive you crazy.
Made me quit.
Yeah.
That made me quit. I only did that for about 4 months in '78, and I quit. I said, I'm not going out there. And I mean, you didn't have to. You couldn't hit it in a 100-acre field. And that's the way I think David Duval is. But go to the practice tee, perfect.
Looks okay. And
Okay. Now, if he's having that problem, I think I could help him. And it's not with his golf swing.
little mental
Right
adjustment.
here.
Yeah.
It's with his eyes.
Really. Yeah.
I cured mine by playing with one eye shut. Closed my right eye and played dead out of my left, and found out I didn't hit that thing 200 yards to the right or 100 yards to the left.
Now, did you figure this out on your own?
Figured it out on my own.
Yeah.
Because we took pictures. I had a lot of people
Yeah.
trying to help me, and they couldn't see any difference. But what it was, the eyes were running up in front.
That's amazing.
Instead of the eyes staying here, the eyes were running. And when the eyes run, you're just a tad ahead of it. And you won't release it. When you hit it, the ball, I felt like the club head, instead of being there, was right there.
Wow.
And the ball would go right here. I'm embarrassing, man. I felt like, well, we had a kid. Well, who was that kid that almost won the Open? Went to Byron Nelson for lessons. Almost won the U.S. Open as an amateur.
Oh, as an
Marty Fleckman.
Oh, sure.
I mean, honest to
Right.
God,
Yeah.
he couldn't hit it.
Right.
He could hit it 200 to 250 yards offline.
Yeah.
Now that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it's time to give it up.
Yeah, he went from top of the world to the bottom.
Oh,
of the
heavens. You know, it'd be like me teeing off number 1 here and hitting it on number 10 green. You know, that's 2 fairways over.
What do you think of the gurus, of the teachers? There weren't that many
Well,
years ago.
I'm not.
You're not.
I just feel that they take a kid that's got awesome talent to start with, and then they got guts enough to take credit for what this kid would have done anyway. And all it is, to me, all they are is a crutch. I had a teacher, Harry Pressler. Harry never took credit for what I did, and Harry had the right to take credit for Mickey Wright and a whole bunch of them lady champions,
Right.
because he started them out when they were 8, 9 years old.
Was he
These
Texan?
guys, pardon?
Where was he from?
He was out of California,
Okay.
And very simple, very, very simple. He didn't get into all this, you know, everybody wants to try to make you think the game's difficult when it's not.
Yeah.
It's not difficult if you're coordinated. Any game's
So that's
tough
my
if you don't have coordination.
Yeah. That's why it's so hard for me.
You know, a lot of people have the loft disease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The loft disease. What is that
LOFT.
one? LOFT.
Yeah.
Okay. And that.
Lack of, and then the last word is talent.
Okay. Friendly talent.
Friendly day. And, you know, if a person's got talent and they get the basics down early, like, you know, you see all these young kids out here, like I was out here last week, and they had an inner club. They had Walnut Hills and Country Club and another club. You know, the young kids out here, and then they had all these little guys who are only like 6, 7, getting golf lessons. Well, these kids, if they enjoy the game, they're going to have all the basics down.
Right.
And when all of us started, back in, say, going back all the way to the 40s, up until about the 70s, you didn't have all that going for you. You didn't have somebody to show you how to get your hands on the club right. You didn't have somebody to show you what position to put the club in at the top.
You figured it out yourself.
You had to figure it out yourself, or you did it by watching.
Yeah.
And we were lucky to caddy for good players. So you copied the good player. And then as you went through trial and error, we went through trial and error. I think, you know, the first person I ever met that had a teacher was Jack Nicklaus.
Right. Jack Grout.
We always did it ourselves.
Yeah. You traveled with
I
Charlie Sifford?
traveled with Charlie Sifford for a number of years. We roomed together. I traveled when Chichi Rodriguez come over here with Pete Cooper in 1960, I think it was 1960, to the Eastern Open, which was in Baltimore. Pete left him with me, and I took him around showing him. And what was funny about Chichi then, and every place we went, he wanted rice and beans. And we're up in Winnipeg, Canada, and he's asking for rice and beans. They don't even speak English up there, let alone know what rice and beans were. So I bring him here, and my mom fix him rice and beans, and I traveled with, after Charlie Sifford.
What was it like with Charlie?
Charlie.
How were the people? The
Oh, let me
galleries?
tell you, you had to admire Charlie.
Yeah.
I used to steal his mail and not give it to him till Sunday, because every week he'd get 2 or 3 hate letters.
Really?
And one of them kept coming out of St. Petersburg, Florida. But Charlie had the best music going. He's the first one, I think, it looked like a bowling ball. It was a tape player. And
yeah.
You know, he had Dizzy Gillespie. He had all the great musicians. And he'd get up in the morning, and his routine was he'd run in place 200 times.
Wow.
He'd turn that music on and go take a shower, get dressed, and go to the golf course. And he worked hard on his game. And, I mean, when I first went out there, he'd change his shoes in the car. They wouldn't let him in the clubhouse. In like San Antonio, Texas. And I mean, that's just in the early 60s. We finally did something about that, and then Charlie got treated like he had to eat with the caddies.
The players stood up for him.
Right. What year did Martin Luther King get killed?
60. Well, it was during when Bobby Kennedy ran for.
That must have been 68.
Yeah.
Campaign.
Right. Yeah.
Well, because we were in Greensboro,
Okay.
and we're rooming together when Martin Luther King got killed. And we're playing out there on the golf course, and Charlie, I'll never forget it, on the 8th hole of this golf course, par 4, nice little par 4. The course was never in good shape because we were there in the springtime. Charlie hit it up to the left, and there's a million rednecks down there, and they're betting on par threes. Who's hitting it, going to hit it on the green, who's going to hit it closest. They might be betting $1 or 50 cents, but they're all drinking beer. Well, Charlie hits it a little left on the 8th hole, and we go up there, and there's his ball. And he got about 8, 10 beer cans piled on top of his ball.
Oh, gee.
And all these guys are standing around there, and their exact words, I want to see this end hit this one.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Charlie went through that every week.
Yeah.
And I was a sounding board that night. I mean, he took me places that white men, you know, wouldn't go, didn't go.
Yeah.
And I took him places that black people couldn't go.
Yeah.
But he and I were buddies. Good man.
Yeah. Yeah, he went through an awful lot.
He went through a bunch.
Yeah.
He should have been the first black person to play at Augusta, by far.
Yeah. That's a shame
By
it wasn't.
far.
Yeah.
It was a shame.
Yeah.
He didn't get invited.
What about some of the others? Ken Still was.
Well, Kenny Still was hyper, real hyper.
Two of you were a good,
Yeah.
a good pair.
And Kenny,
He's a sports nut.
he
right?
really unbelievable sports nut. He's like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to baseball. I mean, I bet and he used to be able to. He probably still can. You know, we'd sit around a table, 5 or 6 of us, and we get a dollar bill out and let Kenny look at it. He'd hand it back to us. We'd put it in our pocket. You'd call him 8 months later. He'd give you the number of that dollar bill backwards and forwards. But we had a good time in the early. When I first went out there, it was enjoyable, real enjoyable.
Did you drive from tournaments?
Oh
to
yeah,
tournaments? Is
yeah,
that what
yeah. Most of us
Yeah.
did. Yeah, but they had the tournaments close together. Like we'd start in L.A. and 1st of January, and then we'd go from L.A. to San Diego to Bing Crosby's.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd go from there up to San Francisco, turn around and come back to the Bob Hope. From Bob Hope went to Phoenix. From Phoenix went to Tucson. From Tucson, go to San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
From San Antonio, Texas, you might go to Houston, or you might go to Shreveport, or to New Orleans, and they all went on a line, see? And the biggest jump you had was from Tucson. When they eliminated San Antonio, the biggest jump you had was from Tucson to Shreveport.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
And you worked your way right on down into Florida, and then you worked your way right back up to the East Coast, and then you played up in this area through the summers. Then in the winter, you worked your way west again.
And driving just
And
about
driving.
all the time.
And driving.
Yeah. Wow.
With a family. And if you won a tournament, you got $2,500 back in the early 60s.
Yeah.
Or it's $3,000.
Well, you won the Buick. You got a Buick, though.
Well, I got a Buick. Well, that was it. Back in '69 when you got 20,000.
Yeah.
Died and went to heaven.
You never thought there was that much money.
No, it didn't mean there was that much money. Now you win, you get $1 million.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, they make more in 1 week, and I made in my whole career.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking today with Dave Hill, and it has been most enjoyable. Always one of the best, not only one of the best players in golf, but always one of the most enjoyable to talk to. Dave, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.